If you pay property taxes in your home or business, this show is for you. It's the Property Tax Show with Brad Hayes, Chicagoland's property tax expert on AM 560. The Answer.
Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, you're listening to the Property Tax Show. I'm Brad Hayes, and we're on the phone with James Marter, an Illinois Republican candidate for U.S. Senate. James, according to the 2012 Paul Simon Public Policy Institute poll, 79% of those asked were in favor of term limits. What is your position on term limits?
I support term limits, Brad. I believe we have that for the President of the United States. It's a constitutional amendment. I think to make it at the federal level, it needs to be a constitutional amendment. I would support something along the lines or anything similar of 6 years for the House of Representatives, or 6 terms, that's 12 years. 12 years for the Senate, that's 2 terms. I think that's more than reasonable. You put those two together and a presidency for a candidate who could run the table, that's more than enough time, 30-plus years in Washington. I think the American people need a way to ensure we don't get too much power in one person in one seat for all those years.
What role should the federal government play in economic development and job retention at the state level?
Well, I believe in limited government. I think the problem is the more Washington tries to play a role in economic development, the more problems they create, the more they want to control, and the worse things end up being. I think we need to free the marketplace. We need to get the government out of the market in terms of the overburden of taxation and overburden of some regulations. I mean, there's a time and a place for certain regulations, but they need to be limited, and they need to be supported by an enumerated power in the Constitution, which gives the federal government the power to regulate those things. If they do not have that power, then I would suggest to those that believe the federal government should have that power that they should go out there and get a constitutional amendment passed to give it that power. Otherwise, let's turn that power like we do in business. We eliminate redundancy. Let's get rid of redundancy of powers and bureaucracies in Washington, D.C. Every state of the union, for example, we have an EPA in Washington. We have a Department of Natural Resources in Illinois. Every state has one. Let the states regulate those things that make sense in the state, close to home, at the local level, not from Washington, D.C.
President Obama just gave a State of the Union address. Do you agree with his economic conclusions?
Absolutely not. I think we have a problem in Washington. They've been inside the Beltway too long. They don't understand what it's like to have your own company, be a small business. Hire people through contracts, or small businesses that hire employees, and they overburden those small businesses, the key job creators in this country, with taxes and with regulations that make it impossible sometimes to grow and expand and compete with companies that in foreign countries that don't even have those regulations and those high tax burdens that we see in the United States these days.
Illinois has the second highest property tax in the nation, and the collar counties have some of the highest property taxes in the nation. Chicago just had the highest property tax increase in its history. When you're out there, talking and meeting, with the people, what do you hear from them on this subject?
Yeah, so I live and probably you may know better than I do, but I see the tax bills in Kendall County, and I believe we're one of the highest property tax counties in the state, if not in the country. And again, I'm running for a federal office, but at the local level, this is driving people out of Illinois. I mean, the number of people who left Illinois in the last couple years is large, and it's getting worse. And it's the taxes, and so the local government bodies keep thinking, let's raise taxes to fill our budget shortfalls. Again, it's not really a revenue problem; it's a spending problem. The government at all levels needs to rein it in. We need to elect people in our county boards, in our village trustees and offices, and around the state representatives, state senators, who understand that there needs to be a limit to government to let the free market and capitalism work the way it's supposed to work and stop overburdening it.
Well, as you're out meeting with the Illinoisans, what do you hear and what are they saying is the number one issue confronting Illinois?
I think, I'm talking a lot about the Unaffordable Care Act known as Obamacare, and I know that's hurting a lot of people. That's hurting Illinoisans. The prices that have gone through the roof, the deductibles for some of the policies people are having, and the fines for those who still can't afford to participate. So I'm mostly talking about federal issues. They do talk about the taxation. They talk about, just the regulation. You see a lot of government involvement in issues that it doesn't belong in. And there's a lot of concern about that. There's also concern about immigration. It's a big issue. It's a big problem in Illinois.
Sure. We've been on the phone with James Marter, candidate for U.S. Senate. I appreciate you coming on tonight, and I wish you well in the March 15th primary. This is Brad Hayes, the Property Tax Show, and we'll be right back after this commercial break.